Was that on purpose? Who knows? There you go. San-sa-da-dum. Hola community, welcome to Blender Today Live 241. We are at the end of the year, for me at least. I'm not gonna be doing Blender Today for the rest of the year, though we are going to have a replacement, I heard. Also someone you already know, so I don't want to promise anything. He mentioned that not next week, but the week after maybe. So just throwing it out there. I have a few announcements to do today besides seeing what's new in Blender, because since the last time that we talked, there has been 2 releases. Blender 4.0 is out, as you may have heard, but also 4.0.1. Turns out there was a crash that was kind of big on some Windows systems. Apparently there was some case where if something to do with the quick access with the shortcuts, and it was pretty often for some people, so that meant that an emergency release had to happen on the same week, 2 days after, on Friday last week. Other than that, I think it's been pretty okay release. Have you had any issues? There are, speaking of releases, tomorrow, Tuesday, there will be 2 new releases, but from the LTS 3.3. I don't know which one we are on right now, and I wish I could check, but we are also being our websites are a bit slow at the moment because of some bots having fun trying to access it, and it makes it slow for everybody else, also known as a DDoS attack. But yeah, releases tomorrow. The releases could happen on the stores, right? Like on Steam, Windows Store, and Snap, and whatever we don't have we don't have the infrastructure. But hopefully the DDoS attack will be handled by then. Otherwise, just keep an eye out. That being said, yeah, interesting. I'm curious about the websites that I need to show, the things that I need to show, if that is even going to work at all. Another announcement that I have to do, and I want to do actually, it's not like just an ad, but the Blender store. You know the Blender store, where like this website where you can buy Blender goodies such as t-shirts and collectibles and yeah, everything that you may already know, all the t-shirts, all the designs. Those this store, it's no longer gonna be the same starting the first day of next year, so January 1st. The person in charge of this, if you have watched that should work, Blender Heads, which is another announcement that I had, that there is a new episode of Blender Heads, episode 4. Well, episode 3 has, I'm not gonna spoil you, but it has Anya. You can meet Anya and Anna as well. They run the Blender store from home, like packing everything. But yeah, they are soon to be slowly starting to do less and less work related to this, because at some point they have to retire, right? Like everybody else. So the store, the handling is just a lot of work. If you can see it, it's just like manual work of handling, getting the t-shirts in, and then packing everything and sending all over the world. And then when something it doesn't arrive somewhere, because everything is sent from the Netherlands to everywhere else. So yeah, it's not very convenient. Eventually, I think we're just gonna move into what the rest of the world has, which is just on-demand printing, whatever in the world, wherever it makes sense, because it's also greener and better for the environment if you don't have to ship everything from the Netherlands, right? Especially if you don't control that. All right, next. What's the chat saying? Pablo, turn off autofocus and low down exposure. Why do you do this, people? They're asking me to make changes in something I don't have control. It's over there. I'm all alone in this room. Do you really want me to stop and then go there? Should I? I mean, the autofocus is the auto exposure. Maybe it's a bit dark. The focus I could do really quickly. Yeah. Anyway, I'm probably just trying to focus somewhere else, or maybe I just need to go to a website that is dark, like projects, and then the autofocus is gonna be lower, maybe. Anyways, the reason I'm talking to you about the store is because the idea is that oh yeah, I'm blinded here. Anyways, everything is with a discount. The caps, the Eevees, like everything physical is under a discount, because at some point we want to get rid of that storage in the south of the Netherlands. So everything is under a discount. Just letting you know. Even the collectibles that you can even couple with discount from the studio account, So yeah. Other than that, what else I have to mention? Blender Heads 4 has been out with featuring Ton and Fiona. Then another thing I have to mention, I don't know if it's gonna work. No, the code blog. Yeah, okay. Sometimes the code blog works and it doesn't. So if you want to help Blender in some way now, don't go to the blender.org websites. Blender.org code blog. And I'm not asking you to go to the code blog now, but somewhere later during the week, because there is a blog post that Folk did from the Grease Pencil team, where there is a call for actually, DevTalk, is that on the same place as, oh shoot, yes. Yeah, the DDoS attack it's I think it's pretty much all over the place. All right, so on DevTalk, the other side where you cannot access right now, there is a call for help for developers and artists if you want to give feedback and test the new features in Grease Pencil 3, but mainly for developers. If you remember, so let's now this is probably worse because this focus is changing. Anyways, I could, right, it's very annoying, the focus. Hold on a second, be right back. I'm just gonna change and now this tries to, all right, now. Hey, now manual focus for the win. All right, what was I saying? Remember 2.8, Blender 2.8? Well, back then there was a task force done in Blender 2.8 workforce, something like, what was it? Not task force, task? Yeah, contribute to the task force. It was a video that we made. Dalai is showing how in this same building here, right here, but many years ago, 5 years ago, Dalai was showing how to contribute to Blender 2.8. Because if you remember, back then, Blender 2.8 didn't even have modifiers. Like they didn't work. Something as basic as modifiers. So there was a task force where many developers from the community would come in and help, like porting the modifiers or porting operators or porting. Pretty much everything had to be ported during the 2.8 rewrite. In the case of Grease Pencil, as you may have heard, in Grease Pencil 3.0, it's a new data type. It's support geometry now. It's just like there's so much work that it needs to be done. So ideally, oh, those were the old icons. Kind of like those icons. These 3D icons. Remember for the sidebar, they were 3D and they were like at an angle, and now they're 2D and boring. Nice. This is like the Chrome logo at some point. Remember, Chrome went flat and then before it was 3D. Oh, nice. I like the 3Dness of because this is halfway. We already have these 2D icons. Anyways, yeah, if you can help at some point, the code block is gonna load for you. Otherwise, go to DevTalk, which also doesn't load at the moment. Let's hope that projects.blender.org keeps working at the moment, even though this one also has its own problems. The sidebar still says beacon 4, even though we are not there. There are reasons why we cannot update the Git software. It's going through some development, and we cannot update that little number over there without updating the whole system. Development, you don't want to know. But what you want to know, though, is what's new in Blender, right? I hope, because that's what the whole show of today is about. So let's say we get started with what's new in Blender today. Starting with 3D view. All right, first, by Aaron Frank. 3D view, add local up and down movement to the walk navigation. Minor usability enhancement for the walk navigation mode. Previously, walk navigation had local movement for forward, back, left, and right, but only global for up and down. This PR adds local up-down movement, bound to the R and F keys. Interesting, yeah, makes sense. So I guess it's like if you're looking somewhere at an angle, then your up and down is different, right? Like up and down global with what it is now, but then on the other direction is different. Local, nice. Aaron F. Thank you, Aaron, for adding that. Next change in the A for animation or anim. The this is just a change in the UI. Rename NLA channels to tracks. Updating NLA channel to NLA tracks across the board, since terminology tracks is the most prevalent in operators, code, etc. By the way, I'm looking at this news together, so I'm not sure about this one. I'm sure about this, it's just a bit worrying that it doesn't have a pull request. So you don't know who agreed on this change. It's a big change. It's renaming NLA channels to tracks. Channels, yeah, you could say, like, if you're, it's confusing with, you know, software where you have RGB channels, right? But shouldn't this change also be coupled with the sequencer? So sequencer tracks, so audio track, video tracks instead of channels. I don't know. I think there should have been more discussion. Maybe there was discussion in the animation module. I bet there was discussion there, but maybe more cross-department discussion needs to be done. But we are in Beacon 1, which is the very first stage of 4.1, so this can be still discussed and changed in the future. So this is just a UI change, NLA channels to NLA tracks. But yeah. Next change, asset shelf. Asset shelf. So this is a UI improvement on the asset shelf. Drag over checkboxes to enable disable catalogs in selector. Ah, yes, I think I know this one. So you know how you can click drag on some widgets on Blender UI to, for example, affect multiple, like close and open certain menus, or turn on and off multiple items at once, which is a very Blender, very unique to Blender. At least, I don't know, I have seen it in many other software. I really like that. It is a feature that was lacking in the catalogs of the asset shelf. So if I open, I think I have let's turn on the asset shelf for everything, for material and object. This is a script that it comes with Blender and allows you to see the asset shelf while in object mode. However, it doesn't make it work. It makes it show up, but not work. It's a different thing. So here I see some materials that I have from a library, from the Polyhaven library, and the catalogs feature that I was mentioned. It's that now you can click drag in these items in the asset shelf to enable multiple at once. these checkboxes, what they do is enable the tabs, so you can access this from the other shelf. Super nice. I hope in 4.1 we can make this work, because right now you have, for example, these are some materials, but it doesn't, nothing happens when I click on them, or when I, because yeah, basically the behavior right now is that if you click on it, it activates, which is the case for the pose library, which is something you want to do. Why would you select something if you don't want to apply it? So click, drag works, but for materials you don't want that. You don't want it to be activated as soon as, like, replace your active material as soon as you click on it. Maybe you just want to know some properties, so you want to just maybe click, drag, click is fine, doesn't activate it, maybe double click activates, or maybe click, yeah, there is some UX to define there. The next improvement is the B for build. And build is not something that affects you directly. It's a change in how you build Blender. And actually these two changes, one of them it's related to something I'm going to mention later. The first one is for the Linux folks, is the Western support for Western compositor was added. The Wayland Western compositor. If you don't know what I'm referring to, then probably doesn't. You're not the target audience. It's a compositor in Linux, a lightweight compositor in Linux. The other change though is update open image denoise to 2.1.0, and this is interesting. Keep an eye on it, because I'm gonna mention some news in like some minutes. Let's switch to curves. 2 changes in curve this week. This week actually, no, in the last 3 weeks. I'm going over 500 commits, of nearly have 500 for 80, I think. I think I mentioned it on Blender community in the blog post that I made. It says 481 commits, of which nearly half are just fixes and cleanups. So it's not everything new features, it's some of them refactors too, so yeah. Next. Well, no, next, current, what I was talking about. Add radius transform mode to edit mode. This commit adds the radius control operator and active tool to curves edit mode. This is the new curves, the ones that you can use hair and geometry nodes with, the new curves. It's a bit confusing at the moment. We do have the curves and the curve data type, which you can see in the editing. Copy and duplicate, you can see that there's curve and curves. This is the difference. One is mainly used for hair. This is the one I'm referring to right now. The other feature is also related to that. You can tell them apart because one of them has sculpt mode and the other one doesn't. The sculpt mode now also got a new operator called frame selected, which is, see, it's a copy of the operator in other areas, but now also in sculpt mode for curves. The changes, that's it for curves. Next is cycles. A few changes. Hardware and one default was changed. The principal hair BSDF default for 4.0 was, well, before 4.0 was released, was the Huang model. And now this model basically has some issues, some fireflies. One of them is better suited for close-ups, one is for far renders, kind of. They have their, or maybe if you're lighting one from behind, the Huang model works better if you have a lot of light from behind, whereas from the front, this just looks slightly different. You can look at the release notes for 4.0. The default was Huang, and now it was changed back to Xiang because both have their pros and cons basically. Continuing with cycles, there is a round of 3 hardware manufacturers they have been tweaking their hardware. Well, they're tweaking Blender to work with their hardware, starting with Apple. This change made it into Blender 4.0. This is the Apple M3 MacBooks that were announced recently, but also it's going to come up to other hardware. I think the iMac too. The M3 has ray tracing built in, like hardware ray tracing. So this option was already introduced in the builds in the past, but now it's enabled by default. And there are some tweaks there in the code that make it be more optimized for these M3s if it detects that you're using an M3. And it's interesting that even before the M3s was widely available for everybody, there were already some open data. Please tell me you're somewhere else. Yes, open data works. Open data is the website where you can find out, like, when sometimes, let's go to something darker there. Okay, so people often ask, I'm about to buy a new computer. What is the best hardware for the best graphics card, the best whatever, or how do they compare for Blender? There is a benchmark for that. Not many people know that there is a benchmark. You can download here from the website, and this I'm gonna stop it just in case now. But you can run this benchmark and you can compare CPUs and GPUs. For example, if you want the best CPU that money can buy for Blender, apparently is the Epic with 96 core processor. Surprising? Maybe not. But here you can just basically type. So for example, I have a Ryzen, I want to compare the Ryzen 5950 with the 7950X, right? Maybe it's a valid comparison. And the 7950X is 719, whereas the other one, the 5950, is 439. So then you can see it's like, okay, maybe, well, actually this one is way higher. The number of benchmarks also makes this, something you need to look after, because for nearly 450 benchmarks, the average, the median actually, not the average, is 569, whereas 410 for the other result. So there is like, okay, is it really worth it to pay the difference? I don't know how much difference in money there is between these two, right? How much more expensive it is for the difference that you would get. And the same with GPUs. You can simply go here and you can compare just regular, just any compute type, and you can say, okay, so an RTX 3090 with an RTX 4090, is it worth it? And you can see that it's more than twice. So I would say it's kind of worth it, or at least twice. Anyway, why was I saying that? Oh yeah, because it's funny that even before M3s were released, that there are tests. You can see, you can filter by Apple M3 and better run the 4.0. Took it by 4.0 because that is the new version that supports ray tracing. And here you can see that it nearly, Apple M3 Max is 3400, which you could compare it with an RTX 3080 maybe? 3080, 4600, okay, not a 3080, but maybe a 3070? Which is quite big for, you compare the sizes of them, and then, of course, not with a 4090, but hey, 3400 is a 500. Interesting numbers. Anyways, now you know about the Blender benchmark. Next, speaking of hardware, the next update is a Linux library update, or a path update for the upcoming ROCm6, the compute, AMD compute, what is it? Radeon Open Compute, that's what it stands for, from AMD. And another update from another manufacturer, but this one affects all of us, or does it? If you have a GPU that supports it, Open Image Denoise adds support for GPU. If you've been using Open Image Denoise, you will see you are familiar with how good it is, how much does it keep detail. However, it is limited to CPU. Now that you have if you have a GPU that supports it, now you can render with GPU, making it much faster. So if you're rendering with a supported Intel GPU, it will automatically select the GPU denoiser. So cool. Next. Eevee. So this is Eevee, just the regular Eevee. However, if you downloaded a Blender build recently, you may have noticed that there is, well, that the name for Eevee has changed, and it now says Eevee Legacy. So Eevee Legacy is the old Eevee, whereas Eevee is Eevee Next. What you call as Eevee Next is Eevee. Same way that Cycles X and Cycles, it's the same thing. Some people still refer to Cycles as Cycles X, but it is just Cycles. And Eevee Legacy is the Eevee that we all know and love, and Eevee Next is now Eevee, just to get people, used to the name. No longer call it Eevee Next, just Eevee. And speaking of Eevee Next, now that I ask you not to call it Eevee Next, I'm going to call it Eevee Next. There are four changes. There's many more actually on. You can find the list of changes on Blender community, but 4 that I'm going to mention today. 1. Per probe viewport display. Add viewport display support for the sphere and plane probes. Make sure that all probes display options per object instead of the per scene. And in Python, show data property has been deprecated and renamed to use data display. Just a renaming. The next change, make ambient occlusion pass use horizon scan. This adds a new way of computing occlusion using visibility bitmasks to make it more algorithm agnostic. We name it horizon scan. This cleans up simplifies the code compared to the old horizon based solution. There is no more trickery for fading influence of distant samples, which makes the result match cycles closer. This introduces a new thickness option. We were talking about that. What is this thickness option? Maintaining it relatively slow makes it possible to avoid over occlusion because of in-front geometry. Making it too low will cause under occlusion. So that's what this thickness was about. Next question. Feature. New shadow settings. Everything that I'm saying that may be new, but it's not really new, it's because some changes are from a few weeks ago. We haven't done this show in a bit. So yeah, next. The change comes as follows. Remove material shadow mode and use object shadow ray visibility and material transparent shadows instead. This happened actually 2 weeks ago, around 2 weeks ago, November 6th. So this has been a while if you are using the development branch. Not branch, but development, experimental. The option, if we go to in Eevee Next or Eevee, if we go to the object settings, then you will see here visibility, and there is ray visibility for shadows. Interesting. Nice. Add the next change is called add max displacement option. to material settings. So frustum calling can work correctly with vertex displacement. So yeah, there is a max displacement option. Where is that? In the properties material under max displacement. Let's see it in the actual settings. Where is that? Max displacement is a distance. The max distance between a vertex can be displaced. Displacements over this threshold may cause visibility issues. That space missing between displace and displacements killing me. And also max, could say maximum. Max in the label is fine, but in the tooltips we can go full width, full text. I think should be okay. Let's see. GPV3. Oh, plenty of changes. Let's go to Blender community and see what's new. I'm not going to mention all the changes, but if you want to know, just search for GPV3 and there is plenty of work done by Folk, by Amelie, Matthias, Antonio, and Casey. The changes are renaming, multi-frame editing, some new operators, switch direction operator, set caps operator, set uniform operator for thickness and opacity, frame selected channels for grease pencil, show all materials operator, delete operator. Hey, it's coming up nicely. Next, in the G4 geometry nodes, there are a few changes. One, don't show layer domains unless Grease Pencil 3 is enabled. Speaking of Grease Pencil, some features in geometry nodes should only show up if and when using the new Grease Pencil version 3. Hans just pushed a fix for the missing space in the description. Thank you, Hans, for making Blender better. I have purchased several add-ons. Sorry, Blender. You don't need to be sorry. You can purchase all the add-ons you want. But also, while you're at it, maybe think about purchasing, something. All the add-ons that you are paying for, they're only possible because Blender is maintained. And it's maintained by 3,702 people and 37 corporates. But this is the number that matters, because if it's less likely that 3,000 people are going to leave than 1 or 2 corporates leave. The moment one of you corporates leave, it means a lot less people are going to have time to look after the code that keeps these add-ons alive. So just say it. Let's move on. Next change, add a group ID input to the fill curve node. This adds a group ID input to the fill curve node and there is a task. The curve filling operation is performed separately for each group. So curves associated with different group IDs do not intersect. This implementation also supports Grease Pencil 3 curves. Nice. By Doug and Hans. Thank you. Consistent name for points node geometry output. It was using geometry and now it's using points. Nice. Consistent. Consistency is key. Support node tools in object. Oh, wow. Dropping a huge one. Node tools. That is one of the questions that the community has, is like the moment node tools landed and they work in edit mode and sculpt mode in curves, it's like, where is object mode? Here it is. Extend node tools to display tools assets in object mode as well as edit and sculpt mode. For consistency with existing Blender design, selection cannot be set, and it's just true in object mode because it can be visualized. Good, nice for consistency. The visibility of tools can be customized per object in object mode as well. The Blender website not working. Yeah, no, it's down. I mentioned at the beginning, it is down. However, if you need the links, if you need to download Blender, and there are links that I provided, I tweeted today on Twitter, on X. I exit today. I don't know how you say it, but it is on X and it is on Mastodon. It is on all the platforms that I can think of at the moment. Hey, Mantisa published something new on Mastodon. But yeah, where is my profile here? How can I access my profile? Here, there you go. Official mirrors to download where anytime your website is down. I should maybe pin this somehow. Can I pin on Mastodon? Yes, I can. There you go. Steam, Microsoft Store, Snap, or these mirrors. There are more, basically every other mirror that you know, it's also available, but this is all the ones I could include in one tweet length. Actually, Mastodon has one extra link because there is more room, but yeah. Anyways, the next change is convert 4 nodes to use rotation socket. Distribute points on faces, instance on points, rotate instance, and transform geometry. Implicit conversions from vectors and floats and to vectors have been added, though using rotation sockets directly can be faster, since converting to and from Euler's rotation is slow. Conversion nodes are not inserted by versioning if the implicit conversions can be used. Keep an eye on that. This change is not forward compatible with 3.6, and socket values are lost when opening 4.1 files in 4.0. The correct socket types are added back in all versions, though newly added conversion nodes may have to be removed. Keep an eye on it, but why on earth would you open if you're working 4.1, stay in 4.1. If you're working 4.0, stay in 4.0. Don't go back in time. Future. Look ahead. Next, use dynamic declaration for some nodes. Okay, this is an internal change. There is one user visible change, that changing the data type in some nodes, which are those nodes. Okay, there's a bunch of nodes here. Yeah, you can see all the nodes: accumulate, attribute, capture, attribute statistic, blur attributes, evaluated index, evaluated domain. Okay, a bunch of nodes here that you can see in the code of this commit. Is the one user visible change is that changing the data type in these nodes does not break the link anymore. Nice. Don't you hate it when you are changing settings and all your links are lost? The next update, edge path to selection node speed up. Wow, major speed up. So this has to do with parallelization. So multi-threading added for vertex and edge selection loops. If you have multiple of these nodes, they will all be executed at the same time if possible. In a test file, the node runtime went from 5 milliseconds to 0.83 milliseconds. Super nice if you're using the edge paths to selection often. More updates. Internationalization, I've seen a lot of changes. The next one is in IMB, so image buffer, I assume. Support RGB A and V channels in the single layer EXRs. Currently, the EXR reader only considers uppercase RGBA channels in the single layer EXRs, which leaves out the lowercase RGBA channels, names we started using for data and vector passes in cycles and the compositor. Nice. Such a small change, but a big one just because of uppercase, lowercase. Crazy how this can break some pipelines. Next, I/O. STL exporter. Alright, so many versions ago in Blender 3.3, the STL importer was ported over from Python to C++, which makes it super fast. In this case, now the exporter has been ported over, which makes the binary export went from an example with 4 million triangles, goes from 7.8 seconds to 0.9 seconds. So almost 8 seconds to not even 1 second. And in the export as ASCII goes from 13 seconds to 4.5 ish. Nice. Thank you, Ares. The patch is co-authored by Iyad Ahmed and Aras. Aras was here at the studio last week. Because it was also the Unite, the Unity conference here in Amsterdam. So that day, Friday, we had so many people visiting the studio. It was fun to see. Next, L for Linux. Improvement info file. This is a file that is used by distros to show, or by stores to show links and how to get involved, and seeing a nice definition of an app or what is new in each app. So nice that it gets updated. M for Material X. Implement HSV node factor input by Pablo Delgado, in a very brief description. Although the patch has nothing. The patch is short and to the point. Thank you, Pablo. Great name. Next, Material X. Add clamp steps smooth step for the map range node. Also very brief. Thank you, Georgii Markelov. M for Mesh. Optimizations. Make vertex normal calculation deterministic. Currently, atomic additions in the vertex normal calculation introduce non-determinism that can influence the result of other operations, sometimes causing non-reproducible renders. Eek, you don't want that for animation. And this is because the order used during the threading when accumulating phase normals changes. So nice. It's not an optimization per se, although it is faster. Before after the FPS is faster. But I guess it's more about making things reproducible. Nice, good to hear. Next update. There is one more for mesh. Use faster a cosine function variant in normals calculation. It brings, computing normals on a Stanford Lucy example with 14 million verts went from 247 milliseconds to 229 when update normals, normal calculation. Nice. This is something that is done pretty often, so any optimization helps. The next change has to do with nodes. Add forward compatibility for merge, noise, masquerade, texture. And there is another change related to this. So this is versioning to convert the new combined noise texture from this task. Versioning is only done for the masquerade exclusive noise modes. So it's all the modes except FPM. Forward compatibility. Well, I was saying that you shouldn't go forward in time, like don't use files saved with newer Blender versions in older Blender versions, but sometimes you can't help. So the next update, it's an improvement by Jack on, well, it's set to nodes because it's basically on every node editor. The ungroup operator now works on all the selected group nodes instead of just the active one. Nice. I never noticed that that feature only worked on the active and not in all of them. So such a small change. Nice. And last but not least, related to the masquerade node that I mentioned before, the Musgrave node is now merged into noise. Oh no. Well, I mean, probably a good thing, but kinda, well, what is this? Why are there so many? Okay, it was just like a bunch of functions here. So I want to see how it looks. Okay, so the old Musgrave texture is now the noise texture. Oh no, rest in peace, Musgrave. Although, I mean, having everything integrated into one makes sense, right? It makes things more easier to maintain, easier to optimize. But yeah, interesting. Everything should be converted automatically though. So versioning code implemented with this patch ensures backward compatibility for both the Musgrave and noise textures when opening older Blender files in Blender 4.1. The output of both nodes are guaranteed, save my words, guaranteed to always be exactly identical to that of Blender files created before the nodes were merged in all cases. Wow. Well, that's a good thing. The less nodes, the better. Next change in the outliner. All right, so these mainly UI changes. One, the show hierarchy toggle, it got renamed to show object hierarchy because it is a bit confusing that if you have collections or other type of hierarchy there, it wasn't very clear. And actually there was a bug report and that was where this change came from. So, you know, it's always a good, I'm running out of water. Actually, I don't have any more water. It's always a good thing to report bugs because sometimes you find this, you know, find like, hey, I was expecting hierarchy to work, but it does work. It just doesn't work where you expect it. So that's why names change and tooltips can be made more clear. Or features can be added to menus where they weren't. The expand and collapse all operator was never added to any menu. It was only a shortcut, the Shift-A shortcut, which, to be honest, I find that at some point we should remove the Shift-A shortcut from the outliner, because it does this, right? It collapses and expands everything, which is fine. It's a good feature. And now it is available in the view menu. So you can actually collapse and expand everything. But it shouldn't be Shift-A, it should be just something else, because the Shift-A should be to add objects, right? Wouldn't it be great to just like do Shift-A like you can here, but in the outliner, in the context where, you know, it's like, okay, I want an object in this collection. You just go here, add objects. I don't know, maybe for objects, right? Not for meshes. But there doesn't even have to be for all modes, or does it? What do you think? P4PLY, ply. Import, export custom vertex attributes in the PLY export importer. Implements this task, support for custom point domain attributes for PLY import and exports. Note, custom attributes are always represented as scalar floats. PLY itself has some data types that Blender can't fully represent, like doubles and unsigned integers 32. Or some that fit into a float just fine, but Blender does not have them as separate types. When importing, any PLY vertex attribute that is not one of the standard names, like position, normal, etc., gets turned into a custom attribute. So if you can't find it in the known ones, it will make a custom one. For exporting, more complex custom attributes like 2D, 3D floats, quaternions, colors get turned into several PLY attributes with _x, like a suffix. Why the X? For export. Next, the Python API changes, just a few only. Enable mesh polygon loop start row array access. So access to the loop start array in Python, so that way you can run operations much more efficiently. For example, for each get with a compatible buffer object, you can do mesh polygon loop start that used to take 1.8 milliseconds to 0.23 milliseconds. So way faster. With a Python list also, it used to take 3 milliseconds, now 2 milliseconds. So if you have add-ons that deal with mesh a lot, you may like this. It's been around for 3 weeks, so maybe you even managed to update your add-on for Blender 4. Next, allow prop collection row array read access for non-editable props. Again, another change that makes a for each get with a vector property and a compatible buffer object go from nearly 8 milliseconds to 1 millisecond. Nice. R for real-time compositor, also known as just a compositor, or GPU compositor. This patch changes how wrap translations are handled by the real-time compositor. Previously, translations were always stored on the result and delayed until automatically realized later. The wrapping status was also stored to control this later automatic realization. So now it's done immediately for the access that has enabled wrapping. Consequently, the image will not get translated, so move around, not as in language, but the content will, in a clip on one side, wrap on the opposite side manner. Neat. Support, this is another feature if for the real-time compositor. Support full precision compositing. Will this make it less real-time than before? But at least precise. So this patch adds support for full precision compositing for the real-time compositor. A new precision option was added to the compositor to change between half and full precision compositing, where the auto option uses half for the viewport, an interactive render compositor, and full for the final render. So it's not gonna be what you see, what you get. Will be what you see is kind of what you're gonna get. However, it's gonna keep things nice, interactive, neat. Next, sculpt mode. 3 changes. 1. Implement face set brush for dynamic topology. Ooh. So this the implementation follows the logic of the face set brush for the faces and grids type of PBVH, with a similar weak part of it iterating over entire mesh at the start of a stroke. So not so efficient as it could, but hey, implement face set brush for the topo. The difference though is that the behavior is that face needs to be fully covered by the brush in order to have face sets assigned to it. Nice. The auto masking is not fully integrated into the brush yet, so doing so it's possible, but seems to require a deeper reconsideration of the way how auto masking accesses original data and how it is fetched from the undo node. Not as an actual node, but internal node. Nice. The next feature also related to dynamic topology. Nice. The improvement is better boundary preservation with the topo, with dynamic topology. The user level goal is to make it so boundaries are preserved in a much better manner. At this point of the project, boundaries are considered edges, which are marked as seam or sharp. It's possible to expand the logic to more cases like boundary between face sets. For now, the main focus is in the algorithm itself. Interesting. Let's see. The rough idea is the following. Splitting an edge is lossless for boundary, so there is no need in any special handling there. When collapsing an edge, so when you're using dynamic topology and they collapse like all into one, an edge prefers to collapse edges which are not in the boundary but adjacent to it. So the vertex which is adjacent to boundary does it preserve and is not moved during the edge collapse algorithm, and then collapse boundary edges. So that is the order in which things are done. There is a bit of tricky parts, like the naming, especially with the flaps. They are explained in the code and ASCII diagrams and provided for better clarity. So basically, just to sum it up, better boundary preservation with dynamic topology. And the last one, also related to dynamic topology by Hans, is consider all the vertices in the face set brush. So this commit, which is probably the one I was just talking about just a bit ago, made the logic to require all the vertices in the face to be covered by the brush. However, the behavior is closer to the non-bmesh version if only one of the face vertices needs to be inside of that. The next change, so dynamic topology, that's an area that hasn't been updated in a while. It's good to see. And this also is possible because Hans was around here at the studio and Sergey too, so that makes it easier. The next area is shader. What does it mean? Principal BSDF by Alaska. Only clamp undefined or unsupported inputs of the principal BSDF. If the website would load, that would be amazing. But yeah, this is what is related to the principal BSDF. And as you remember, not long ago there was a change done, so the principal BSDF inputs were clamped, and now this change has been done to only the undefined or the unsupported inputs. And the website is not loading. I think I might have an issue at some point. If I can't, let me load another task. All right, so okay, this one up. This one worked. Let's see if the previous one works. All right, here, adjust clamping of inputs in the principal BSDF to avoid errors and inconsistencies between render engines while trying to leave as many inputs as possible unclamped for artistic purposes. Nice. The next change is speed up. Oh, this is the actual. It's in the S for speed up, but it has to do with the compositor. Speed up classic Kuwahara filter by summed area table, up to 30 times faster for 4K images in the full frame compositor. Nice. Filter runtime becomes independent of the filter size. This is only for CPU, so still awesome. I mean, 30 times faster. It's almost like a GPU. Almost. Next. Transform. Custom modifier to navigate while transforming. Alright, so this, I think, from the user point of view, doesn't change anything, like, just as it on its own. However, it makes the alt navigation option of some operators became a new modal key item. It's called pass-through navigate. So that way you can customize the key chosen to navigate while transforming. So instead of just doing alt and then turn around, it's allows you to set any keys. Awesome. Next. In the UI, user interface, improve mesh edge highlighting. Well, this is not really UI. This is more like 3D viewport. it allows you to set it adds a couple of, well, actually it's just the one theme setting because we don't have enough theme settings. It adds a setting that allows you to change the color of the for example, if you are in edge select mode in the 3D viewport, you can make the edges of different color than the regular part of the mesh. Right now Blender, or before this change, Blender was trying to come up with the best selection, the best color. Basically it was only one color for all the mesh. Now there is one that is per mode. If you are, for example, in edge select mode, you will notice that the edges are slightly more yellowish, but now you can set that to be a completely different color. If you go to themes, 3D viewport, then edge mode selection. So if you want to make the edges blue, like unselected edges in one color, and the selected edges while you are in edge select mode, you can do it. So in vertex select is one color, edge select another color, and that makes it more customizable. This patch has been around for ages, so thank you Gilberto for your patience, and everybody else in the community. This was 3 months ago, and I think there was even discussions even before that, so thanks everyone for your patience. Next change by Alaska. Don't show HDR setting when using false color view transform. Nice. Why would it be? Thank you. Support dragging over the node panel headers to batch and collapse. Makes it possible to swipe over the panel header to batch, open, collapse all the panels the mouse dragged over. Normal panels and subpanels support this too. Okay, so this is inside of the feature that I mentioned before for the asset browse, asset shelf. Same, but for the nodes. Next, type to search for the sequencer add menu. Yep, every add menu had this feature except the sequencer. That is a bit of a shame. That shouldn't have happened. I remember mentioning every add menu and forgetting about the sequencer. So sorry, sequencer. We love you. Thanks, Pratik, for bringing this up. New icons for horizontal and vertical split. Oh, nice. I haven't seen this. So I assume that if I right click, yeah, right click, vertical and horizontal split, now have icons. Nice. This makes it pretty clear what, like, how is the splitting going to happen. I personally didn't have an issue with it. Like horizontal, it's just, that it's flat, that is horizontal, right? Like, well, maybe because I pictured how the line would be drawn, horizontal or vertical. But yeah, it kind of splitting, like you could call this is splitting horizontally too, right? Like, anyways, icons make it so much more accessible. So thank you, Stefan. Next, file browser display narrowing. Oh, nice. I think this one even had a picture. Oh yes, the file browser is responsive, like an app, well, kind of. We still have the useless field here that becomes unusable. This maybe could wrap into a new line too, same way that this wraps into a new line. I wonder if that's even possible, because it would mean interesting. All right. Next, color picker position indication by Harley. Let me show this in full color here. The indicator in Blender in the past, and let's just open the previous Blender, because we're in the last Blender Today, or my last Blender Today of the year. So let's just show how things used to be. Okay, so remember the colors, right? The color picker. The color picker, I never noticed this, but the color that you were actually picking was covered by a white dot. Like, why, right? It's like beating the purpose. I mean, you do have this indicator here, but as you can see, sometimes it can be covered. So Harley went ahead and fixed that. I made it so in Blender 4.1, when you open the color picker, it's actually the color that you are selecting, and when you click on it, it actually becomes larger, so you can see, all right, this is the color I'm picking, and then it goes back to regular size. So it's even interactive. It looks like it makes it look more alive. Then the same for the picker here, the line in the side, and I assume this works on every other color picker. So if I go with square, it also works. Nice. And the line is actually vertical. Neat. Cool. All right. Next. UI Python API. Okay, so this is related to the UI, but to the Python API as well. This is if you are an add-on developer or whatever developer. There's a new active panel category RNA option that you can access to see and to set, I guess, to which tab is the active one. Next is a video sequence editor change. Is a removal of the speed factor RNA property from sound strips, because you can do the same with the pitch anyway. So this has been removed. Cleanup. Just keep an eye on if you're working on add-ons that use this property or scripts. Then last but not least is the viewport compositor allow the access to depth pass. Actually, I don't think this has an impact to the user. I'm just curious, what would this be? This patch allows access to the depth pass in the viewport compositor, something we really need. So since the depth pass information is required for full precision, making use of the pass requires the full precision option for now. In the future, this pass will always be stored using full precision, regardless of the precision use. All right. And this is only a few days ago, so probably still being worked on. And well, actually, no, that wasn't the last. There were just too many to mention, but the Vulkan implementation now has, well, if you look at the very end, Vulkan, you will see that there has been cleanups and all kinds of features. So look at all these changes. Initializing, implementing samplers, anisotropy option, memory statistics, and so much more. All right, so that is all that is new to Blender today. Shall we? Are there questions? There are 14 comments. Are they just talking to each other? Let's see. Okay, so let me open this. Let's see. Okay, now there is really a lot of comments. So what time is it? 6:30. Let's see, because then I have to go and do this in Spanish later on. Let's do 5. 5 from the ones that are, well, there's one is 3 minutes ago, and I usually go to the ones with the most votes, but there's only one vote in this one. Let's see. Hi Pablo, for a long time Blender has had built-in default objects such as the cube, plane, Suzanne. Those are also known as primitives. Why not do the same for assets? Add default materials with procedural textures, add some node groups for geometry nodes, and maybe even brushes. This will make life much easier for newcomers. And NubNubBud says, this is planned, at least for a number of objects of geometry node basics, notably the hair ones already. Actually, NubNubBud is correct. Blender already comes with some default assets, such as if you have, for example, an object, there is hair and normals. These two, well, what you see here, and one of the reasons why this menu changed shaped, is that these are assets that come built in Blender. And the system for this was just added a few versions ago, so it wasn't even possible before. So now it is possible, and the first implementation is for the geometry nodes. That geometry nodes don't require any textures, they are very lightweight, so adding or not adding these built-in geometry nodes groups is a no-brainer. It doesn't make Blender bigger per se. However, if you want to add default textures and materials, unless they are procedurally made, they will make Blender heavier, like bigger. So that's the main reason to avoid it. But actually the main reason is that the system wasn't in place yet, even at all. Now the system is in place. We could do it, we could implement assets by default. However, first we need someone to make them. The community, please make them. Make a plan for it. Okay, I have 10 materials that we can add, and they're all procedural. So overall, the weight of this is maybe 100 kilobytes or 100, 200, 1 megabyte in compressed, right? So okay, that is a good selling point. But no one in the community has done it yet, right? Like this, nobody has come and said, well, maybe I missed that, but maybe nobody has come and said, like, hey, I made these materials, or let's grab the best 5, 10, 20, 30 procedural materials from the community and giving them out to Blender. Unfortunately, sometimes that has more, they're more popular as add-ons or asset libraries or asset packs and stuff. But it would be nice if the community will come together and try to find the best ones that could be most widely used by everyone, and giving them to the community, not even to Blender, to the community, because it would be CC0, public domain, for everybody. But it would be pretty nice. Now that the system is in place, maybe we are in a good place. And maybe one day Blender could offer 2 versions. Blender, just Blender, and then Blender plus assets. Instead of being Blender 200-300 megs to download, you could have Blender that is 300 megs and a Blender that is 500 megs, but it comes with a bunch of textures, HDRIs, materials. That would be pretty nice, and it should be offered separately, because for people that just want Blender, you don't want them to download so much. Some places internet is not as great and also expensive, so Blender should offer both versions. Let's scroll to the first one that was mentioned. Hola, Pablo says, so are you not, hopefully you're not a bot? Okay, no, Watson. It's just that your nickname is non-Y7. It looks like we had some bots before, and okay, you're not a bot. Revisions feature is very nice. Revisions? We don't have revisions in Blender yet. Is there a plan of using PostgreSQL or MySQL for a PLM solution to check in and out releases? Did I miss anything? What is a PLM solution? PLM solution. What does it stand for? Product Life Cycle Management. I don't know what you mean. Sorry. What kind of revisions feature in Blender? Like for assets? Like SVN? Sorry. I don't know what to say. Next question by Mr. Kleiner. Hi Pablo, is the 2.79 keymap still maintained, and would it be maintained in the future? I'm very used to it and will be very sad to see it go. Yes and no. Is it maintained? Well, it ships with Blender still, right? Let me know. Let me check here. Keymaps. Yes, it is maintained. However, somebody mentioned if it would be removed, if anybody would miss it. So it's good to see that you're mentioning this, and please in the future always make yourself heard, because maintaining key maps takes work, right? Takes time. The key map for 2.7, I don't think anybody is maintaining it. It just keeps working because nothing has broken yet around it. However, it is not maintained, so any new shortcuts are not added there because they didn't exist in 2.7. So, but yeah, if you wish to maintain it, it really doesn't take that much work. It's Python. You just need to know how to use it and think of new shortcuts that could be added to it. Like I don't know if the Shift A shortcut has been added for the modifiers, have been added to the 2.7 key map. Like the Shift A for modifiers. Let's check. Add 2.7. Oops. Oh, it is added for the modifiers. Nice. Okay, so that is added. But yeah, if nobody like says anything about it, it is considered like yeah, people are not using it. So thanks for mentioning it. Nuno says, Nuno Alex Consecal, who is a Blender Studio subscriber and a Blender Development Fund Gold supporter. Nice. Hi Pablo, what happened to the extrude manifold tool? Seems that its feature was a bit rushed and it has been over 2 years and is still broken, although the tool is quite promising and potentially very useful. Even with the new geometry nodes tool context, I don't think this tool is recreatable with geometry nodes yet. I don't know actually if it's recreatable. Otherwise someone would have done it already. If it is, it would be great because then it means that could be supported and maintained more than the current state of that tool. But yeah, no, I don't know exactly who implemented that feature. I think it was someone from the community and whoever made it is probably no longer around, unfortunately. I don't remember exactly. Does anybody in the chat remember who implemented that? Because I don't. Next one. Hello viewers. Hello viewers. I would like to show an add-on. Okay, so we got spam, but for Blender add-ons that takes node editing to the new level. The author of the add-on in the future wants to add an add-on to Blender itself. Node Wrangler will not be needed. What is it? So it's in Russian. It's a great start. It's... Ooh, interesting. So we, instead of going all the way there, you can do, it's just maybe... Oh, nice. Oh, interesting. So it kind of, oh, that's amazing. How does he know though which socket you want? Maybe based on type automatically? Holy crap. Nice. Like a pie menu for connecting. Brilliant. Has like a ray connecting. Okay, not a big fan of that, but I know this maybe just a debug. Hey, it looks pretty neat, but to people that are making this kind of or like anybody, anytime you can think of a feature that could fit on an existing add-on, why not just adding it to that add-on? Like there is an add-on in Blender that's called Align Nodes, which there is an add-on called Node Wrangler, which wrangling also kind of fits with aligning. So why making a whole new add-on when you can just add it to an add-on that everybody has already, like the Node Wrangler? But yeah, this will be like a Node Wrangler 2.0, although it's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I wish we had this. I wish we had node wrangler added by default in Blender. Oh, this is nice with highlights even. But the problem is that many of the features that the node wrangler has are just hacks. Interesting. Yeah, it looks amazing. Interesting. Well, it's good to see that you have it on Voronoi linker. Interesting. That you have it on GitHub and available for everybody. It's nice to hear that people still believe in open source and sharing. So thank you. It's not spam. If it's open source, it's not spam. Next, how many questions are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hi Pablo, hope you're having a great week. Well, the week just started and it didn't start great. I'm gonna go to personal details, but it could have been better, let's say, with the DDoS attack and things happening in my country. It's like, oh. Let's say making Blender today is the brightest part of this week. Hi Pablo, hope you're having a great week. Thanks for all your great work and congrats on the release of Blender 4.0. Thank you. Congrats to you too. It's a community effort. This is more of a heads up than a question. I don't know where to apply so the devs become aware of it. Over the last few weeks, I've been figuring out a memory problem when rendering many different view layers in one pass. Blender currently needs to render and hold all the view layer passes in memory before being able to output anything. Makes sense? Blender isn't able to release any pass to disk before it finishes rendering every layer from one frame to memory. Which means if you have a few too many view layers in high resolution, Blender simply won't output anything and freeze when memory limit is hit. The only current solution would be to deactivate view layers and render in batches. This can make memory management kinda unpredictable if you need higher resolution for print, etc. I assume it's because Blender assumes that passes are needed in the compositor directly, but this really messed up our work for a few days to find out about it. It's of course totally fine if it simply is not seen as a problem at the moment. I just want to make sure that the devs are aware of it. At least then I feel I've done my duty to report it. As I am just not sure they even know about it. Thanks for taking the time to read. If after this still seen as not a problem, I will shut up about it. Well, thank you for sharing this. Myself, I'm not probably the person. I can mention it to Sergey when I ran into him at the coffee machine. But maybe it is better to share this in maybe it's not a bug report, maybe write it somewhere. Well, you are writing it here, but because it's right click select is a feature request place, it's not always a maybe a place that the developer would go to unless it's something. I mean, there is a difference, right? One is a feature request, one is an actual, not a bug, but almost. What could it be now? Okay, so you can mention this, I think, like the heads up version, maybe shorter, like, right? Summary, and ask if it's a feature or a bug, if it should be reported, and maybe ask in the Blender chat. So directly to developers, they're gonna answer at least just the one message. Don't spam, please, but just the one message in the maybe in the regular Blender coders or more in the render related chat. But yeah, thank you. And also, I mean, you're supported of the Open Movie projects, Sprite Fright, Development Fund. So thanks for that and for making this proposal. All right. I think it's time to call it. it is time to call it for a day. It's a bittersweet feeling, right, to finish this for the year. It's not over, and it's not over. Dalai has mentioned his interest after I brought it up and kind of asking me, hey, because he's comfortable with cameras and talking to people, and he's been at the show before, so he knows, and he's a developer and also a product manager, so he knows what's going on. So I hope he will feel, confident enough. Please be nice to him. I mean, you're nice with me, and he has more experience in everything, and he can actually answer some more questions than I can. So I think it's gonna be fine. Pretty happy that he agreed on it, and maybe can have Francesco on, who also related to product. So there will, or maybe other developers. I don't know. I think it would be a nice playground. I'm gonna go on holidays. I usually don't take holidays throughout the year, and I save them all for the end of the year because my family is one ocean away, so I kind of want to see them. Other than that, we'll hang around on social media. I'm gonna still be working remote for something that is coming in December from the Blender Foundation. So let's say it's a celebration. It's a nice moment of the year. So stay tuned for that if the DDoS attacks allow us. But yeah, I hope you had a great year. I did have a great year. We had so much Blender 3.6, before 3.4, 5, 6. This year was 3.5, 3.6, and 4.0. We've seen so much, and 4.1 already is well underway, and next year it's gonna be even bigger, I think, with all the with Eevee Next, with Grease Pencil 3. I don't know, it's just gonna be mind-blowing. I hope you stick around to see it. Take the time to use the tools that are provided to report any issues that you may find. Something like what happened with 4.1.1, something that would crash Blender on open. How did that happen? How did no one else report it throughout the whole 4.0 beta process, right? All the way to release candidate, and now it was how? So please, if you can, test Blender as much as you can, and when you find an error, I know it's annoying, you have to make an account, but it's what makes Blender more stable, and it's the first impression that many people have. Many people might have downloaded Blender for the first time, and it was Blender 4.0, and they get this crash. It's not nice. So it's always a good thing whenever you find an error, report it. And whenever I did the DDoS, I am the spammer, somebody says in the chat. No. Happy holiday. I'm reading at the chat here, by the way, and so thanks for all the nice comments. Also, thanks for everybody that sent me a message about how saying that Blender Today is a part of their week, and it's a nice part of the week because it's kind of giving mostly nice and good news. It's kind of holidays every Monday. Let's do this again. You're gonna have more news from Dalai and the rest of the developers throughout December. I myself, actually November might be not the 26th on the, so it's gonna be December. I'm back in January, and then we'll continue talking about everything open source, the community, Blender, and everything around it. Don't want to get emotional, but I'm gonna get the headphones on. I hope you don't have the volume too high, and if so, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Watch out. I hope that was loud enough. Thanks everyone. Have a fantastic end of the year. happy blending, and just have fun. Bye. Thanks. Thank you, everybody.